Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Samantha Backlund on the podcast. She's a figure competitor coming to us all the way from Louisiana. She's also a trainer and a prep chef, the first ever prep chef that we've had on the podcast. And she's also a mother of four, if you want to, add on to all the other things that she's accomplished in her life. Mother of four, and she looks like that. It's like, good God. But first of all, or most importantly, I should say, she's our current guest. Samantha, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I got to ask, what's the weather like in Louisiana today?
Hot and muggy. So we're anticipating a cold front, but it's in the 90s and it's probably 100% humidity. It's not fall yet.
Jeez, that just sounds absolutely miserable. I don't know how you guys would be able to deal with that. I mean, it's about, like 60 degrees here. It's a nice little breeze. I mean, I'm going to go out and, me and my dad, we got all this dry, dead wood from a tree that we cut down. So we're going to go and burn that when I'm done talking to you all day. But yeah, it's for once, I've actually had better weather than my guests. Usually, I mean, it's cold and muggy here and, they have these nice, great weather. So I mean, believe me, I'll take it. Before I depress everyone with, our weather woes, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to get into this lifestyle?
Well, kind of like you, I was an athlete growing up. I was able to continue that into college. I was actually a soccer player. I started a family pretty early. I spent most of my adulthood having babies. I was in a terrible relationship. I was actually in a bad accident. I have quite a few injuries still from that. I sunk into depression and anxiety, and one day I had a moment with myself and said, I've got to take back control. And it started out with weight loss. I was 195 pounds. I lost 70 pounds in about an 8-month period, just from my own knowledge on diet and workouts. And then once my current spouse and I got together, he's done bodybuilding for about 5 years now. And he said, I really think this is something you could do. This would bring out the athlete in you. And I've been doing that for 2 years now.
And that's so awesome because that's why I love asking that question, because we hear so many different answers. And I mean, I would say, honestly, it is half and half of the guests that I've had on, where half of them do really have that really athletic background, where they're a gymnast, a swimmer, or a soccer player. And then the other half just sort of fell into it. And that's why I love it, because so many people have so many different stories. And to hear that own individual story, I think, is really just so inspiring. But how long before you decided to get into the weight training aspect of this lifestyle?
So initially, my whole weight loss thing started in about September of 2016. I would just go on walks. I would just put on some music. I reclaimed some me time from being a mom. And it wasn't probably till January I started going back to school to finish up my human and health performance degree. One of my requisites for that was we had to do weight training. We had to log it. And I was a power lifter in high school. I had that much experience, but being able to really expand it. So that would put me at almost 3 years. In February, it'll be 3 years that I've been weight training.
That's one thing that really has surprised me, is that a lot of our guests from the South, they talk about, how there's powerlifting teams in their high schools. That's one thing up here that we've never, I mean, we don't even have that for men up here. That's really something that I think that's unique to that area, because I mean, we've had people from Texas, we've had people from, Mississippi and Alabama, and they all said the same thing. Like, in high school, I might've been on, the powerlifting team, and yeah, that's really fascinating. So I think that would be a fun thing, that if they would start that up here in the North, that would be an interesting sport to have. And I might've done that, in high school too. But I always say, if you were to walk into a gym and there's 100 people in that gym, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little minute things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were getting started? Because I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what'd you train for this body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
So even with that, one of the first things I tell clients, especially women, moms who aren't familiar with the weightlifting aspect, is once we find the comfortable weight for the amount of reps, you're wide open after that. That's the hardest part. The hardest part is literally finding out how to start. As far as weight training, I like I said, I had a little bit of experience on different mechanics that would work. Through my studies, I was able to discover some more, but really it was just trial, like you said, trial and error, a lot of trial and error. At this point, it's pretty fine tuned on, I know how to target the area. I know how to get that quick pump. I know how to basically destroy that muscle so that it can come in and heal a little bit bigger, but absolutely a lot of trial and error. Just and being playful, being open to trying different exercises, looking at different outlets.
I couldn't agree more. I always compare it to sort of like being a mad scientist where you're just trying to like concoct your own potion. You're trying to figure out how to make something. And it just, like you said, it's so much trial and error. Just, I always like to use the Edison reference too. I mean, he tried to invent a light bulb like over 1,000 times and it didn't work. And then, eventually he got it. I mean, it's just don't ever give up. But a question that I also love to ask all of our health and fitness guests, because I mean, it's just so important. It's gotten better the last 5 years, I'd say, because of Instagram, but there's still just so many women that have that fear where if they pick up one weight, they do one push up, they do one pull up, they do anything, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And I mean, I always say to that, you'd be the first ever trillionaire, everybody and their brother. I mean, the government would kidnap you and probably like do genetic studies on you and just find out like how they could take your genes and transfer it to like everyone. So you would be like the biggest commodity of all time. Was that ever a struggle that you dealt with when you got started where you didn't want to get too big? And even if it wasn't, I mean, I bet being a trainer, you hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
My response is always just a reminder to some of these women. With my current switch from bikini to figure, there's certain spots I need to grow. I'm literally like sacrificing an animal every day and praying to whatever God listens to me for my muscles to grow. And the diet is geared toward that. My supplements are everything is centered around growth. And I'm still just not quite having the progress that a lot of these women are just fearful of. Like you said, I would cut off a foot if somebody said, just go do this and you'll have the growth. We have to have muscle in order to burn fat. I mean, obviously, you can go get on the treadmill and you can burn fat, but that's not building a healthier you. You're getting some cardiovascular health, but you're not going to get the overall appearance. You're not going to get something that you can sustain for a long time. So that's always part of it is if you're wanting a shapely, womanly figure, that's also it's actually healthy, not just aesthetically pleasing, but serves a purpose to the way your body, the mechanics operate. We're going to need to build some muscle. It's a weekly conversation of, look, the weights are scary and they're new, but we're going to baby step into it. And you're going to thank me later.
I totally couldn't agree with you more. And I always like to tell the story of when I was in college. I had a friend who, she said, Ryan, you're getting bigger and stronger. I see all these changes that you're making in the gym. I kind of want to go to the gym, but I'm afraid that I'm going to get too bulky and put on, too much muscle. And I told her, I said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to clubs or when we go out to get something to eat weighs more than 90% of the dumbbells in there. I mean, she had a really heavy purse. I don't know if she had a dead body in there or whatever. I mean, maybe she got mad at a sorority sister. I don't know. But it weighed at least, like 20, 25 pounds. And I was like, you lugging that thing around all the time. I mean, you're not putting on an ounce of muscle from that. And then that kind of made her realize, and it's just so important to just dispel that. But one thing that I love to add on top of that question, because I find that it impacts women so much more positively than it does men, is the confidence boost that working out gives you. I mean, we have heard so many stories on this podcast of women who have, made life-changing decisions, just gotten that confidence boost, and it really just impacts their overall life. And I always said that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact every other aspect in your life. How have you personally taken that confidence boost that working out gives you and used it to help you in all your aspects in life?
I'm building an empire. So with that, it's not even just that sense of I accomplished it or I'm setting PRs or, you aesthetically look better. There's also a physiological aspect to that. I mean, you're releasing endorphins, you're optimizing your health in other ways. There's just a lot of other benefits that you might not necessarily be cognitive of that are going on too. But as far as a confidence boost, I did a whole lot of internal work when I was doing the external work too. And that is something I talk to my clients about, that, we got to figure out why you're doing this to yourself. Why are you eating like that? Why are you not training? Why are you not sleeping? It's hard to explain. It just all kind of came together finally. And one day I literally just woke up and was really cool and proud of the person I was. That's led me to be a better mother, a better spouse, a better employee. It is not just I'm happy with what I see in the mirror. I'm happy with me. I know what it took to get here. I knew all the things I had to do, and it really just helps me sleep at night.
One of the questions that I also love to ask, because everyone's genetics are different. That's one thing that so many people don't understand, is that, I hear this 100 million times. I want her arms. I want his back. I want, their legs. No,
Yep.
you have to be the best version of yourself, and people don't realize that, there's so many factors that go into how that person looks the way that they do. But when it comes to genetics, I always say, when everyone walks into a gym for the first time, they're going to have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much. And then they're going to have that one body part that sort of lags behind, that they have to train to overdrive. I'll give you mine first. I mean, my back was just, because I had jobs all throughout college of, lifting and loading boxes into trucks, and, you either had a really nice back or you quit. Those were the two options that were presented to you. But I'm 6'3", like I said before, so my legs and my lower body are just shot, where, I have to train them into overdrive just to get them to look like any semblance like I work out at all. I still have friends at the gym who still make the joke, hey, Ryan, you plan on training legs anytime this year? And even though they know I train them twice a week, and I'm just like, guys, seriously, come on. Now, that's like the 10th time they've made that joke. They make it all the time. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
So the exact opposite. Not so much when I got started, but now currently. When I got started, I had a lot of just that mom bod. I've always been bottom heavy. I've always had bigger glutes, bigger legs, especially with my soccer background and track background. But when I was really overweight, it was all in my midsection, which was an indicator that there were some hormonal issues, some stress issues. Now, currently, one of the reasons I decided to switch to figure was because I was very, very what they call quad dominant. I could not get my legs small enough for bikini. My glutes, I can look at the leg machines. I can look at the Smith machine and they grow. Same with my quads. I can look at leg instruments and they grow. My back, I kill my back twice a week, shoulders twice a week, legs maybe once a week, and it's high reps. It's just trying to keep them toned. When you say genetics, I come from a legitimate Creole background. Very, very big glutes, very big quads, very big hamstrings. And of course, with bodybuilding, you're always trying to present balance and symmetry. And for figure, they want that beautiful X frame. So being that my lower body is the size it is, now I'm having to accommodate through the top, trying to create that X transition. But genetics are hard. Genetics are absolutely where you start. And past that, it's getting a game plan, getting a coach that knows what they're doing, getting a nutrition that's going to gear towards what you're trying to do. You can fight against your genetics to an extent.
For anyone out there that doesn't know, I'm the first of my generation that was not a farmer. Well, my dad wasn't, but he was a farmer early on. So, my whole dad's side of the family, they have really big forearms and really big backs because from working the fields all day. So that's one thing that, it's just so fascinating how the other generations pass on all that stuff to you. But, yeah, believe me. It's like could one of you guys have worked calves maybe once back in the day, like just once? But yeah, I always say that's the one thing. I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't grow an inch. It's just. I see the person with nice calves walking in. It's like, dude, first of all, I know you've never trained them because they're the most genetic thing possible. But yeah, I know when I was asking you that question, I was like, okay, she was a soccer player. That means lower body is going to be, just going to take off. So.
See, but I don't have like the cute like ball calf. Like I have huge calves, but they're like all the way down, like the cankle.
No, yeah, and then you got some people. And then you got some people where they just look like a big bicep, basically, just a big calf. But then, yeah. So it's again genetics. It's just such a fascinating topic, but probably the most surprising aspect for me that I would have never guessed before I started talking to bodybuilders, before I really, got into what the sport entailed. And what I think the general public doesn't understand is that for so many of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
So I've worked with several different posing coaches, especially with my transition from bikini to figure. And one of the first posing coaches I had told me, if it's not hurting, you're not doing it right. I've had quite a few posing clients come to me, come to my spouse, and leaving drenched in sweat, cramping, and they didn't anticipate it to be that difficult. It really is. And it's something, even now, I'm in my off season and I practice posing every day. It's something you have to be diligent with. It's something you have to be very brutally honest with yourself about. It is not just practice, practice, practice. It's fine tuning so that you can showcase best, because it really sucks when you've done all that work and you've been hungry, you've been sleepy, you've been tired, you've invested all that money, and then you don't show it correctly. You're really doing a disservice to yourself. So posing is it is just as important as every other aspect of bodybuilding.
The undervaluedness of posing is just a fascinating thing for me. But when you were making the change from bikini to figure, what was the biggest difficulty that you had with the posing aspect?
So I didn't anticipate enjoying the stage as much as I do, but I really liked the sassiness and the elegance of bikini, and figure, I think, is a little more regal, if that makes sense. It's not so much about having some kind of attitude. It's about really displaying the hard work and what you've done. So being able to take a little bit of my bikini experience and morph it into what's expected for figure, I've loved that. Being able to kind of keep some of those soft transitions, keep a little bit of my personality. And we've been really blessed, especially bodybuilders now. We have so many pros that really display what's expected of us, especially on an amateur level. I don't know if you got to tune into the Olympia, but there was so much grace and value to what they did on stage that us amateurs can come back, look at that, and not mimic it, but take steps with it that are going to help us with our posing.
Like you were talking about, seeing all those, world-class athletes help and really, show how to do it. And I mean, it just sets such a great example, like you said, for the amateurs. But out of your figure poses, what is your favorite pose to do and what is your least favorite pose to do?
So as far as just during my posing routine, my individual one, I like the first pose I come out and hit. It's a side pose, but it's a little bit angled with the leg. My quads cut up really cool. They condition really good. And I tend to get my waist pretty tiny. So giving just a little bit of that angle, it helps elongate it a little bit more. And I've been really, really trying to help my poor lats grow. So that kind of helps display that lat growth right there. Least favorite is my back pose. I'm just still struggling on how to transition into it and not look like a robot. It's just really difficult for me to engage, and I want it to look smooth and flawless and effortless, which is the goal. And right now I'm a little robotic.
I mean, in the off universe that, I ever competed in a women's bodybuilding show, I would say, the back pose.
Don't say that.
Oh, well, yeah, in the parallel universe, I should say, yeah. But I mean, the back pose for me would be my favorite, just because that's the one pose where you can let your face down. I mean, you don't have to smile. You can kind of relax, take a little breather. Although we did have a guest from Australia come on, and she said that, as much as people like to think that, you don't need to smile the entire time, you do, because she told me, I lost a few points. I let my smile down a little bit during the call outs for about 30 seconds. And they said, hey, you had a few points, doc, because, you have to maintain that presence. So that's definitely, I mean, I always say, out of all the things that gotta be sore for you, I mean, your jawbone is probably, if not the most sore. It's definitely up there from just smiling that entire time. I mean, I personally.
Oh, there's tricks. There's tricks to it to help you.
I just have a resting bitch face though, so I mean it's hard for me to even, contemplate, smiling for that amount of time. But another thing with the posing too is that a lot of people don't realize that after you guys are done with your workouts, you do your posing sessions most of the time. And for a lot of these posing sessions, you're more sore than you are from your actual workouts, just because the body is not meant to be in a flex position for that amount of time. So that just adds even more to what you guys have to go through. But another interesting topic that I, don't think it's talked about as much as the heels that they make you guys wear. What has your experience been like in those heels?
Oh, I love them. I remember when I initially ordered some, when I first started competing, I was like, there's no way in hell. I can't even walk in these. And my spouse, who's been my coach up to this point, he was like, walk around the house, do dishes in them, sweep in them, vacuum in them. live in them for a little bit, get comfortable with them. Um, since then, I think I have 5 pairs of heels. I have a designated practicing pair, the pair that stays in my little backstage buggy, and then I actually have another pair up there. um, I mean, it takes some adjusting, but it really, I don't know, it kind of helps build the aura that you need to have on stage, that femininity and that just encapsulating that you're proud of everything that's going on. So I like them because they kind of help get me into the correct mentality of just appreciating what I'm getting to do, what I've worked hard to do. Um, I don't know.
We've heard so many stories on here of people, that they have to, vacuum with their high heels on. They have to do so many things just to get used to that, because so many people aren't used to wearing those heels. And I always say, isn't it hard enough, the posing that you make them do, to then add on the heels to it? But I mean, I guess that's what it has to be. But now, one of my fun questions that I love to ask, I mean, as you can tell, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. My thick Norwegian skin, being in the upper Midwest where the sun is not going to be your friend, even though you don't see it that much. I mean, I either get burnt to an absolute crisp or I get farmer's tan, where, let's be honest, that's not a real tan. Bodybuilders get tan, so I love to ask, what is that feeling like for you when you get to put that tan on? And we hear so many stories about, women who have, you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to
Oh
pop
yeah.
out. What is that experience like for you?
So I did not get any of my Creole genetics. I am also pasty white. I took after the Irish and Swedish side. Um, they call it a transformation. You go and get that first coat, that base coat, and already you're kind of just freaking out about, like you said, all the things that you didn't know existed. Oh my God, they're all there. Look at your obliques. Look at everything. Look at the feathering. Something about that tan, like you're really nervous about the day or so before a show, and then usually you'll get your first coat the evening before the show. Something about that really helps it set in, like, oh, this is real. We get to do this. And it puts in the excitement. Like you said, you see all the things that you haven't really been seeing. And then when you get your final coat the next day, you turn into the most paranoid person on earth, because anything and everything, if the sun is shining incorrectly one day, it can mess up your tan. So, and especially for women, there's some other untalked about things that we have to be more mindful of. So, yeah.
The first time that I heard how it was applied and the state that you were in, I was like, no, there's no way that that's true. And then the
Oh,
second,
yeah.
then the second
It's
and third
freezing
guest,
cold.
yeah, then the second and third guest came on and said that, and I was like, okay, wait, that's like an actual thing. Like, I didn't believe the first guest, but yeah, everyone, that is, again, more power to the people that do this sport. But I always say it's a double-edged sword too, because I mean, when you get this tan on, you basically have to become a human statue, where I mean, you can't sit on anything, you can't lean up against anything. I mean, we hear so many stories of competitors having to bring their own bed sheets. I mean, it really does come with the territory when you're adapting and doing this lifestyle. But a question that I ask all of my guests, whether they be, my up-and-coming bands and musicians or my bodybuilders for my bands and musicians, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to walk on stage and perform live in front of hundreds to thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders that I have on the show. What is that feeling like for you when you get to walk on stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months to even years on?
It really is nirvana. I mean, it's excitement and pleasure and nerves, and it encompasses like every real emotion that you have. When you're on the side, when you're waiting on the steps and you're getting ready for, your nerves are out of this world. Even if I mean, I've been on stage a good handful of times and I still get really nervous. It's a weird confident nervous, and then something about once you get on stage, you get to own it. It really feels like you're possessing your place. Or at least for me, it does. That's my favorite part. I love getting on stage. I love having the stage presence. I love being to interact with the crowd, the judges, and own my moment for a little bit. And unfortunately, it feels like it happens in 5 seconds. I mean, it's 8 seconds, so it's not much of a stretch. And as soon as you get off, I remember the first show I did, and the first time I went on stage, as soon as I got off, the other girls, I competed in novice, so it was other novice girls lined up. How was it? Oh my God, they're all asking. I was like, I can't wait to do it again. It was such an adrenaline rush, and it's still like that. That's something that's really cool about this sport is no matter how many times you do it, it's still exciting. It's still nerve-wracking. It's still very, very real, raw emotions.
I always say, if you can find something that gives you that, I mean, stick with it, because I think so many people try throughout their lives to find that feeling and they don't. But I mean, just stick with it. But another myth that I love to bust, and this is one thing that, I mean, I didn't understand why it was a myth at first, but now I get it, is that a lot of people don't realize that the look that you guys present on stage, that is not a sustainable look. I mean, I've heard so many times of people who aren't into bodybuilding, just commenting down below, or, emailing me and being like, wow, I was shocked. I didn't realize that, all these competitors, they weren't able to look like that 24/7. And I think it's because people watch shows like The Biggest Loser, where, I mean, people go on and lose, like 150 pounds, and sometimes they're able to keep that weight off, where they just assume that that's, the same thing with competing, where, I mean, if you diet down, you lean down to that look, just the amount of hard work that you put into it, you're able to maintain that look. But I mean, it is just so not the case. And some people try to maintain that look, and that is just not good for your health, because you're at unhealthy levels of body fat percentage. And I mean, it's not sustainable. But what was that like for you when you first found out that, hey, the amount of hard work that I put into it, it's not going to matter. I'm not going to be able to maintain this look. And has that gotten easier for you to accept as your career has gone on and as you've done more and more preps?
So I feel like that's the elephant in the room. I feel like that's probably the least talked about thing, especially for women. Because for guys, it's like, it's okay because they're still going to look like bodybuilders. But unfortunately, for most of us women, we don't still look like bodybuilders after we've started either a rebound process or we're comfortably into our off season. Um, Body dysmorphia is very, very real, especially in the bodybuilding and especially in the amateur years. Um, Last year, that was really hard. It was very hard to accept that I couldn't maintain below 10% body fat all year, that I couldn't just be shredded completely. And then I felt like, because I have a really good gym community around here. I mean, I work at a gym. There's quite a few other gyms I go to. These are people I've interacted with for years now. And I felt like to some weird offset that I was going to be disappointing them, or that they were going to think different of me because I didn't look like what I looked like when I was prepping, when I was in my off season. There's just so much that goes into that, this mental trickery that you do on yourself. This year, I can finally say I'm really comfortable. I've seen what my body's capable of. I knew what weight I was able to get to last year, how much I was able to condition down, how flawlessly I was able to condition down, because once I finally got into a deficit, my metabolism was wide open because I had been eating like an apple for a few months. That's something that needs to be talked about a lot more, especially for girls who are just starting. If they really prep properly and they really diet down to a show like they should, once you come out of it, it's hard. It's hard to accept your body.
That was definitely one of those moments where I was just like, I can't believe that that was the case, because you look at so many of these people and it's just so shocking. And I'll throw up a picture of her and her husband, but because your husband, I mean, let's be honest, he could be off season and he could put on 40 pounds and he still looks like he's a bodybuilder. I mean, I saw a photo of him helping you set up this morning for the podcast, and I was like, yeah, there's no way. I mean, that guy could put on 100 pounds, and people would be like, oh, dude, that guy's still a bodybuilder. Just, yeah, men have that unfair advantage. Definitely.
Yeah, it's crap. I mean, I'm up maybe 15 pounds and my abs kind of exist on the right day. And he's like almost 40 pounds heavier than his stage weight and still has all of his abs and all of his veins. And that's crap.
That is another reason too why I like having the women on, because they go through so many more different things, with the hormones and just with every single aspect of the sport. Their body reacts so much differently, where I mean, with the guys, I mean, yeah, like you said, they can be in their off season and you're like, are you competing tomorrow or what? It's like, I can totally tell how that would be frustrating for people. But two of the questions that I love to ask all of my health and fitness guests that I have on, for the first one, I mean, there were so many positive things that happened to me when I started working out and getting in better shape. But one of the negative things is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tight. You're the go-to person with that. I'm still at home with my parents for the next couple of months before I move out. And every single time they bring home groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries, being the good son that I am. Obviously, your husband is a very, very big and very, very strong person, but do you personally still sometimes get asked to do favors by people just because they assume that you can do stuff by the way that you look?
Yes. And I think probably one of my funnier things is, we have kids, they do sports. Our oldest is about to be 11, and silly questions like, how much does your mom bench press? What is it? I don't even bench. I think I get asked probably weekly if I do CrossFit or how much can I bench. And I'm like, no to all of it. I've never done CrossFit and I don't bench press now, so I have no clue. But just odd questions like that. It's not even that I get asked to do tasks. It's, hey man, what do you eat? You can't eat what I eat. Oh, what supplements are you taking? That's only part of it. Like there's a lot of ignorance. And then I guess on the other side of it, there's a lot of people who are actually interested in making themselves a little better. So it's kind of finding that fine line of entertaining stupidity or truthfully being helpful to somebody.
I never even understood what people sometimes got from message boards on these Instagram pages where, it was such an eye-opening experience where I was like, okay, I would quit Instagram. I would, just become a monk somewhere in a rural area and like never have any contact with people ever again if I got the amount of crap that some of these guests that I have on have. But yeah, whenever I used to get asked, how much do you bench? I'd always just say, more than you, or I just respond of like, what do you, yeah, and like, what do you eat? It's like, trust me, you don't want to know what these bodybuilders eat like all the time. People, the normal person, like I tried a prep diet and I lasted about 2 weeks and I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. I need to have a pizza every once in a while. I need to have a beer every once in a while. It's just,
those are called refeeds.
Yeah, I know, but I need to have a little bit more than just a refeed. I need to have, a couple refeeds, a couple refeeds a week. So yeah, it did not work out well, but probably my favorite question to ask, and it's a multi-million-dollar idea. For fit guys, your clothing options are messy as well, but especially for women, your clothing options. See, we get that reaction every single time. Your clothing options can be very, very limited. I always like to say if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not made for that. What have been some ways that you have found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be very limited, and the fact that you basically have to have two wardrobes, your prep wardrobe and your off-season wardrobe?
Yes, we don't talk about that either. Like there's the in-season wardrobe, and then I have it's a big laundry basket of like what I was wearing a few months ago, and then I took down the stuff that I can wear now. Like I go from like a size 00 to a size 4, and that doesn't seem like a big difference, but oh my God, it is. Like your clothes are either not going past your knees or they're falling off of you while you're walking. But yeah, leggings are amazing. I live in leggings, and there's these things called jeggings now where they look like jeans. Oh my God. Shirts are kind of a weird thing. I'm still very proud of being female. I'm still very proud of capturing my femininity. So I like dresses. I like dressing up. Whenever I do get the opportunity to actually slap some makeup on and go out or do something, I remember I had a full meltdown last week at a boutique that we have here in town, and I was really excited to find something cute to wear for a post show, where everybody goes out and eats. And I couldn't find anything. All the dresses wouldn't go past like right here on my arm. And I was like, okay, I just have to wear sleeveless for the rest of my life.
Yeah, believe me, I love this type of weather though, and especially as we get closer to fall here in Minnesota, where it's sweater weather all the time. Where that's the only tricky thing, if you're trying to pick up people at bars or if you're going out with people, it's a mystery. You're kind of, it's an investment where you're like, I don't know what they'd look like, without the sweater. So, you kind of, it's a guessing game, but like I said, I love the fall though, cause you can, put on the 10, 15 extra pounds, you can eat a little bit more, especially, which is, a must have during the holidays. But yeah, whoever invented leggings, get me some of that money.
Oh, God bless that person.
Absolutely. But you're a mom of 4. How are you able to maintain this lifestyle while also being a mom? Because I always say, being a mom, that is a full-time job in and of itself, on top of being a trainer and a bodybuilder. You basically have 3 full-time jobs.
So it's 2 points. First point would just be everything has to have balance. When I was depressed and anxious and all those other really unhealthy mental things, I was not balanced. I had no time to myself. I was constantly giving from an empty cup. And whenever I was able to figure out how to give myself my own self-love, even if it's a 5-second bath by myself with the door closed, even if it's just sitting for 5 seconds, because I'm a busybody. I like to do my act of love is service. I'm constantly doing for other people. Just getting to sit down and think for half a second is self-love. So it's all about balance. The other part of it is just involvement. My kids are involved. We have a home gym too. My 6-year-old Bronson is really obsessed right now with working out with me. He's really into the Ninja Warrior stuff. So he likes doing pull-ups. He likes doing crunches. He likes seeing himself flex in the mirror. My kids are very active with what I'm doing. And then I also plan. You have to be a very prepared person. Fortunately for myself, I'm pretty type A. I like to plan ahead. I like to be prepared for whatever. So my meals are cooked on a certain day. They're done with for the week. That is one of my favorite things about prep is I can cook one day and know what I'm eating for the rest of the week. Our kids still play sports. They still have school activities. We still have family functions. It comes back to finding balance in all of it. How do you incorporate that extra thing with motherhood? How do you bring it all together and figure out how it's going to work for everyone? I mean, my kids know what I'm doing. They respect what I'm doing. A lot of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is to set an example for them. So that helps give me a outlook of joy with what I'm doing too. Not crying about, oh, I really want pizza, but I'm eating chicken for the 4th time today. I know that my purpose is a lot bigger than just myself. So I'm setting an example for my kids. I'm setting an example for other people who either follow me on social media or may contact me in person on a daily basis.
I love asking that question because so many people just think that, it's almost impossible, but I have found, I will say this though, out of the moms that I've had on, 99.99% of them are type A, and you have to be type A if you're a mom and you're a bodybuilder. I mean, just with the scheduling alone, it's necessary. But I mean, I had a health and fitness specialist come on, and they were even saying, if you have parents that are, healthy and fit, it is vastly more likely that the kids will be, just because if they see those positive and those healthy habits, I mean, they are vastly more likely to adapt those. So, I mean, yeah, you doing that. And like you said, you already have a 6-year-old who loves to get into that lifestyle. So, I mean, he's going to vastly be more healthier, or vastly have a better chance at being more healthier than probably a lot of his classmates. So, I mean, that's such a great thing. But you're also a prep chef, and you're the first ever prep chef that we've ever had on the podcast. So what got you into that? And I guess a B side of that question is, what is your favorite thing to cook for people?
So what started that was just see a need, fill a need. I live, I guess, in a somewhat small area of the world. I don't know if you've ever had Louisiana cuisine, but I mean, we are known for our food. We're starting to have a community that is more aware of the health and fitness part of it. It's not even just from an industrial look at it as, oh, this would be a smart business move, but we do have a lot of people around here is finally starting to kind of open up and be awakened to this lifestyle. And I know as a mother, I know as a woman, I know as an employee, the hardest thing is just making time for it. So what can I do that could further help people? Well, I could cook the meals for them. That way, all they have to do is just get it out of their freezer. No excuse. That eliminates that excuse. And I just started. I have a Sam's Club membership, and I pay the light bill there. I mean, there have been some weeks where I've cooked over 200 pounds of chicken, and I cook it all on a grill before I do anything extra with it. So there's a multi-step process to it. We have 3 freezers out in our garage to accommodate my little business maneuver. And as far as favorite thing to cook, I don't know. I do a mango chicken salsa that seems to be a pretty good hit. It's a little bit of that sweet with the heat. And everybody thinks like your first go-to healthy food is like, oh, I'm going to eat chicken and rice. You know how many different ways you can cook chicken? Like, there's so many sugar-free and carb-free sauces at your local store. At Walmart, we have a Kroger that has a ton of options. You got to get a little creative sometimes, but it's not impossible to do. And I also do a turkey meatloaf. That actually tastes really, really good. Meatloaf is one of my comfort foods. Making those small adjustments to sugar-free ketchup versus using traditional, which has a ton of sugar in it. I don't know. I like that part. I like getting to be creative, and I like cooking a lot.
I'm going to be completely honest on here. I mean, I have never admitted this in person, but I have never in my life tried sugar-free ketchup, and I've wanted to give it a try, but I'm just one of those traditionalists that, I mean, I can't do it. But I mean, I was going to say the stereotype. Oh wow, a chef from Louisiana. Never heard that one before, but yeah, it always seems like in the movies, every famous chef is either from Baton Rouge or they're from New Orleans, or that but yeah, and I definitely understand that why, because I mean, yeah, they do have their own cuisine in and of itself. But a few of the questions that I like to ask, all of our guests, it's sort of a questionnaire where we'll ask our, Samantha here a couple of questions that we ask all of the health and fitness guests and see how our answers stack up to everyone else. So if someone were to walk up to you and say, Samantha, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know. I maybe for detailed feedback from judges. Uh, I find that sometimes we all kind of get a cookie cutter, like, oh, you need to tighten up your glutes, or oh, you need to come in a little more conditioned. I wish maybe the classes would be smaller so that we could get more of a precise, hey, this is what you need to improve. Hey, this is what you had going on for you. Uh, I don't know. It's really hard. I'm enjoying the bodybuilding community. And something else we don't talk about is everybody's really cool backstage. It's not catty and it's not mean. We all went through the same to get there. So everybody's at a really good understanding and respectful of each other. Even if you don't like each other outside of the stage, we're all really nice backstage. Some of my better friends I've just met doing shows.
Especially for female bodybuilding. Male bodybuilding might be a tad bit different, but for female bodybuilding, I mean, everyone cares about each other. Everyone's so nice where, as let's be honest, your husband can probably attest, sometimes the males, they want to rip your throat out on stage, but then, they're cool backstage. But yeah, I mean, it's such a loving community, and even just looking at some of these posts that people make, and then all the positive comments that they get from other competitors. I mean, it's just so awesome. But I mean, I actually had an idea that I put on my last podcast. I'm going to repeat it on this one because I think it's a good idea, because we've heard that answer so many times where judges feedback, or judges always, change, what they want every year. So I mean, it's just so different to find out what they want. But I remember I used to go to the scouting clinics, for baseball when I was in high school, where as I was a pitcher, so what they would do is they time all your pitches, they'd give you a rating based on whatever, and then they'd write stuff down like need to work on mechanics, need to work on delivery or something. And what they do is then they'd send you that in a letter like 2 weeks after the showcase, and then you'd get it and then you'd read it. If they did something like that for bodybuilding, where like they showed you like the scorecard, and then they like wrote down like little notes like, oh hey, your hamstrings need to come in a little bit more. Or, oh hey, your back pose needs to be worked on, and just little stuff like that. It's like that would make such a huge difference for people. And yeah, it's just such a small thing to do. I mean, how long could it take just to write up a few notes? I mean, take you a couple of minutes at most, and you get it done for all these competitors. It'll take you a couple of hours that you can do on show day, basically. But yeah, so anyone out there who's a judge, that's my own idea, but you can call me for patent rights, and I can sell the idea for you guys. But yeah,
if they just took a picture of our scorecard and sent it to us via email, maybe. I understand it. There's hundreds of competitors, on competition day, and those poor judges are sitting through every class, every division. So I understand to some extent they just get muted out mentally, but I would like more of a detailed description of what I need to do right.
don't even get me started on all these stories that I've heard from people who, just the judging, and yeah, that's a whole different topic in and of itself.
Yeah, but that's a whole other day.
That's a whole series of podcasts that are like 10 hours long each that I could do. But so now moving on the questionnaire, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Just don't fall in love. Don't be so desperate. I really had the world of opportunity when I was 18. I already had a college scholarship. I was in the best shape of my life. I was a straight A student. I had a lot of things that I'm proud of that I was able to accomplish back then, but I wish I could have ridden the wave a little longer. I wish I would have respected myself enough to continue working on myself. There's so much I would say. The biggest thing of it is just don't be in such a rush and enjoy where you're at, take advantage of where you're at, and continue to build yourself. Because not only did I stop at my peak, especially my athletic peak, But I'm still rebuilding the damage I did to myself my entire 20s.
I don't know why I'm the only one on this podcast that would pull a Back to the Future Part 2 and just give myself like stock advice and be like, hey, bet on this team. But yeah,
Oh, yes.
that's the first thing that I would do. But yeah, and then I'd also give myself advice, like, hey, you don't. I was such a huge. I mean, I just turned 25, but I was such a huge people pleaser back then. So I'd tell myself, hey, not everyone's gonna dig your vibe, so just accept that. But yeah, so if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved in your bodybuilding and just your overall life? What would you like to have done if we were to talk a year from today?
So a year from today, I anticipate on either having my IFBB Pro card or in the process of prep to getting my IFBB Pro card. I wanted to compete at nationals in Miami this year. I hit a plateau in my prep where I started reversing and I had a little bit of a fatigue. I say a little bit. I had a lot of fatigue. Which I plan to be smarter about next year, not prepping all year, because you can't do that either. You can't just stay in a deficit for a full year. I'm really looking at Miami next year. I've got my eye on that. I'm in the process of getting some certifications that I plan on getting. I'll have them by then. And just writing out what's going on right now. I've had a lot of healing stuff besides bodybuilding. I'm just really good with life right now, and I anticipate that to just keep going, for it to just continue to get better. I've actively worked for it to get better because that was an inside job, and no, it's going to keep getting better.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck in that. I mean, I honestly think that you're going to do great. And now, lastly, before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
My spouse, Wesley Bushnell. He just got his IFBB Pro card in North Americans in August. He's been competing for a long time. He decided to use Ryan Hinton 6 weeks out from the show and managed to condition in and get his pro card. 6 weeks is almost unheard of for a prep. But they did it. I'd also like to give a shout out to my supplement sponsor, Man Sports. They've been great and they've been accommodating. I've worked with Rich, who is I think the CEO of Man Sports. I've worked with him with some other veteran-owned companies. He's a great guy. I'd also like to shout out 2 different gyms. One that I work at, which is Gigi's downtown, and another one is Genesis here in Westlake. Mr. Wayne there has let Wes and I work out there for years, and he's just been very supportive of our goals and what we've offered to the community as far as the health and fitness industry.
Anyone who's interested in those gyms, if you're in the Louisiana area, I mean, I'll leave a link to all that stuff down below, and go and give Samantha a follow. I highly recommend it, and I'd love to have your husband come on and then talk about, first of all, 6 weeks for a prep and then he wins his pro card. I need to hear that story, because that's one of those things where you're just like, okay, what now? So yeah, we'll get him on the podcast in a couple of weeks. But yeah, it was such an honor and pleasure to have you on and talk about your story. And I mean, such an inspiring story. And anyone who's interested, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. And again, Samantha, we cannot thank you enough for coming on.
I really can't say thank you enough for reaching out. And sorry, I was a little aggressive at first.
No worries. Oh my God, believe me, no worries at all. I know. Like, I've had to come up with techniques where I was like, what is the message I can send people that would be like the least subject to like having them think that, like, because I know that there probably have been occasions where people have looked at my message like, hey, you want to come on this podcast? And they're like, okay, that just really sounds really creepy or sketchy at first. But so I understand that. So I was like, what message can I send without sounding like super, super creepy? Because I understand what these people go through. So yeah, no worries at all. I would be sketchy too if some random person just said, hey, I run this podcast, blah, blah, blah. And I normally don't even contact people usually sometimes from my podcast page. I have another page, like my own personal page, that I contact people from. And that looks even worse because they're like, oh, he has this pod. So yeah, I could go on a whole tangent about that. But yeah, no worries at all. But again,
honest to God, having the link to your YouTube, being able to go to your Instagram page and just kind of do a little bit of homework and see like, okay, no, he has some reputable people, reputable athletes that are on here doing this. This is something I need to consider, and I'm really, really glad I did. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, and again, yeah, just all about spreading those stories and realizing that everyone has their own story, and like you're talking about, sometimes the comments that especially muscular women get, it's just real people realizing that they're human beings just like everyone else. I mean, they just have a hell of a lot more dedication, and they know how to manage their time a lot better than most people. But hey, they're just average normal people that may be in more shape than you. But I mean, it's just getting that out there. But again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on. It was so great. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.